Andrea O'Connell,
Ken Rusk.
aka that electrician chick, right?
It is. Hello.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. And you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks so much for taking out part of your day. I know that I see on your Instagram you're a pretty busy gal, so I appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your day today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my story with you. It's an honor to be here with you.
Well, we talked off camera a little bit. It is so cool for me specifically. I've been in blue collar my whole life. I'm basically a ditch digger. I've been doing it for 37 or 8 years now, owning my own company, and another 5 or 6 before that. And to me, there just needs to be these stories. And whenever I get a great story, especially a story about someone who took a chance like you did, a female in the electrician world. I just love this stuff, and I've had the ability to talk to a few people now that are gals in businesses like welding and electricians and plumbing, and it's just such a cool thing. So I'm always interested in how you got to this place. So can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and where you grew up, real quick?
Sure. So my name is Andrea O'Connell, and I grew up in Minnesota, which actually resonates heavily with your book.
Yeah, it does.
So, yeah, I grew up to a blue collar family. My dad was a cabinet maker for 38 and a half years, and my mom and he met in, um, I guess, woodworking school is what you call it, Votech school, back in college. So my mom is also a carpenter by trade. She didn't pursue that as a career, but that was how my parents got together. So grew up in a blue collar family, watched my dad do it his whole life, but never in a million years did I think I would be the one joining the trades. As a little girl, I wanted to be a fashion designer. I can remember sitting in the hockey arena watching my brothers play hockey and sitting there with my little notepad, doodling my little sketches of the dresses and the outfits and things that I wanted to make someday. And that became a reality. I did end up going to college, got a degree in fashion design, worked as a buyer for Dillard's here in Florida, but found that the people in that industry were not my kind of people. I ran into a lot of materialistic, keeping up with the Joneses kind of folks, and that just wasn't who I was at a core. So I set out to find something that made me happy, and it took a lot of years. I ended up doing some really cool jobs, but just nothing that set my soul on fire. I was always good at things, but it wasn't like my passion. I just couldn't find it.
So
So,
this is interesting. So I'm going to jump in where I hear some really cool stuff that I need to point out really quickly. So
sure.
um, a lot of times you think about someone who grows up in high school and then they find this passion, whether it's being a carpenter or being an electrician or whatever, and then they kind of run with it.
Mhm.
It's not as often that you hear somebody who goes to a whole scenario other than that, like you did. You get a degree and you work in that field, and then you're like, you know what, this isn't for me. So getting back to when you were younger, they talk about the 7 different ways of learning. Okay. I'm someone who has to learn by doing. I have to be outside
Yes.
working with my hands. So, you talk about there's visual learners who have to see it. There's auditory learners who have to hear it and kind of ingest it that way. There's logical learners that they have to reason everything out before they can, take it into their brain. And then there's the verbal ones who really work a lot off of communication, back and forth, speaking, writing, listening, whatever. And then there's this one. It's called a kinesthetic learner. And that is someone who learns by doing, by immersing themselves in actually doing something. So I'm going to guess that that's probably you. And can you point to any of those examples when you were younger about how
Yes,
you jumped in and liked to do things?
I did. I was a musician from a very early age, 2.5. I started playing the piano, um, taught myself, and then my parents were like, "Holy cow, this kid needs lessons." So jumped into lessons at age 5 and did that for a decade. I mean, gosh, anything sewing. I learned how to sew at an early age, but it didn't just stop with purses. It went all the way up to like my senior prom dress. So it's, anything that I decide I want to learn, I go full throttle, and it's not like I just learn it a little. I have to learn it to be like well versed in it. I just love learning. It's been my whole life. Um, Even after college, I went on and got a real estate license, but again, it wasn't my field, but just learning the entire process, it's like, I just love learning. I love learning. But what got me into construction was my divorce at 30. I became a single mom, and I was like, what am I gonna, what am I gonna do with myself? Like, I need to learn a skill that's going to provide for me and my kids. And a friend of mine was a contractor, and he had some people that weren't showing up every day and couldn't maintain the schedule. He said, can you hold some boards for a couple days? And I said, sure, I'll try. And that was really the big push of it, was I'll try.
Yeah.
And I just kept showing up and saying, I'll try, I'll try. Pretty soon, 3 years later, I was a full-blown carpenter with a 2-3 guy crew, and we're building massive decks, massive docks. I'm painting, I'm doing all these things that I never imagined possible that a little girl like me could do. I mean, I weigh all of 115 pounds, and I'm like 5'6". So there is not a whole lot of size to me, but I can throw some weight around on a job site now because of that confidence that I learned early on by just saying, I'll try.
Now, you were talking about your parents, and you talked a little bit about their woodshop class.
Yes.
I went to high school, I hate to say it, a long time ago. And when I was in college, in high school, I say, they had shop class. So you could accidentally discover how cool these things were by walking down the hallway.
And I took shop class.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't, it didn't strike me then that I would be good at something like that, or that something like that could make me happy, because I was a girl, and girls aren't supposed to do those things,
Yeah, and that's part of what makes your story so cool, because if you could walk down the hallway and look at someone changing a transmission on a Mustang, or perhaps maybe doing some kind of a cooking class, or maybe building a table, grinding a table on a table leg on a lathe, or putting an outlet together, or welding, or whatever, you could discover those things. And then some genius decided, well, let's take those classes out of high school now, and let's fill those rooms with computers. And computers are fine, we need you to learn all that, but what would you say? What would you say to your younger self? Because you went through some time. I mean, you went, I would say, 12 years in a career that you eventually didn't want or didn't like. What would you say to your younger self, or any parent out there who has a 15-year-old daughter or son, about what the possibilities are?
You think that college is going to be worth the paycheck, and you go through all this trouble to earn that paycheck, but if happiness doesn't accompany that paycheck, it's never worth it. It's never ever worth it. You cannot put a price on happiness, because if you're going home miserable, what's the point?
Yeah, that's 100% right. So the next logical question is, how do you define happiness as it relates to what you're doing then?
I call that self-discovery. And I didn't learn how to do that until I was about 32 years old, 31 years old. I spent my 20s being a mom. That was my main priority, was my two little gems. But then at 30, I'm like, I'm losing myself. What am I doing here? I got to figure out what makes me happy. So we started going camping, and we started doing all kinds of fun things as a family that I remembered myself being happy doing as a child. My family we went camping, we went to the cabin, we did all kinds of stuff outside. So I knew what made me happy, and I was like, I got to get back to those roots. I can't lose that. So we've been doing that now for, gosh, as you know, every year we go camping. So it's been 9 years, 8 years. We do all those things. And through the self-discovery and learning about yourself is where that happiness comes from. So you combine that happiness and those passions with something that you want to do every day, and or leading you into new opportunities where you find that passion. So now I have a ton of passions. Oh my gosh. And we have pets, we have everything that you could possibly think of that would bring joy to your life, simply because I set out on that journey saying, what brings my soul joy?
Exactly. And so when you talk about that time and that college education and that push to do that, what was your high school like? Did everyone just assume they had to go to college when you were in high school?
My high school was very small. I grew up in a tiny little town. My graduating class was 182 students. So I guess everybody just kind of did what their parents thought they were going to do, which was, like you said, go to college. There's a ton of my classmates from high school that are doctors, lawyers, business owners, blue collar workers, but business owners. I mean, so many successful people, real estate investors, real estate brokers. Lots of people did lots and lots of cool things. I tried to do that with the college route. Like I said, I wanted to be a fashion designer, but I don't think at that age I could have ever imagined the types of people that I would encounter in that industry. And it's just something, and I don't want to say everybody in fashion is that way, but it it's a very materialistic industry, and it's hard to find genuinely humble, down to earth people who want to make a materialistic lifestyle out of what they do. So I figured out that fashion is just an expression for me. I like to use clothing and fashion as a way to express my personality, which I think people can kind of see by my high vis pink that I wear all the time on job sites.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't a path that I could find fulfillment in for the rest of my life. And so once I started learning how to fix my own house, and things didn't seem so scary when something would break, and I'd be like, oh, okay, well, I'll just, take it apart and look at it, or I'll get on YouTube and see if I can fix it myself. And then pretty soon one thing just led to another. And it's like, I run a sufficient household completely on my own. I mean, pool care, lawn care, home care, doesn't matter what happens. My kids are like, mom can fix it. She's got it. And that's a incredible foundation to be sitting on now.
So again, talking to that person, because to be self-sufficient, and we're going to get into, what your day's like in a minute here, but to talk to those kids who would be saying to themselves, well, there's a certain amount of fear that I have. Okay. There's a certain amount of anxiety I have about taking that route for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's a lot of stigma against it. Okay.
Yep.
You're supposed to go to college and that's where the money is. And none of that is true. I mean, I can tell you that, college has only ever been one of about 6 paths to get you to success. One of them being college, one of them being an apprenticeship, a tech or trade school, working right out of high school, a military career that you can learn great trades in, those types of things, all valuable skills that are highly marketable. And that's where what the goal is now, is to get people to understand that when you put your feet on the floor in the morning, by the time you get to your school or your office or your church or wherever you're going, you're crossing 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still viable today and lucrative. Okay. So some of these things, and you took this path just now, you talked about, if there was a fear or a trepidation about fixing something, you could go on YouTube and kind of learn it, and all those fears kind of go away. Can you talk about how that maybe gave you some confidence into making the decision to do what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. It just, I guess you could call it like a miniature snowstorm, because it's like one snowflake starts to fall, and then another, and then pretty soon you've got all this snow on the ground. but it can be really fun to play in, right? You get a sled and you go.
Yeah, right.
So construction was my snowstorm. It was like one little snowflake just kept falling at a time, and you can either call it a blizzard or you can have some fun with it. And I really started to have some fun with it because every project I completed, I felt that accomplishment. Like, wow, look what I just did. Like, look at what we just built, you guys. This is really cool. So it gave me that fulfillment that I needed. And then the fear started going away. And I realized that fear only exists in one place, and it's your mind.
That's
And
exactly right.
as soon as you stop letting fear hold that wheel, you're just in control of everything. And now that I'm in control of my entire life, I mean, down to what I eat, what I drink, where I go, who I talk to, who I give my time to, the boundary setting, that's what that freedom that you talk about, that comfort, peace, and freedom, that's freeing.
Well, one of the things that I always talk about is, you know, when you're in a trade and you're working with your own hands, a couple good things happen. Number one, you're talking about that stand back moment. Okay. That moment where, you may not get this when you're in the 15th floor in some cubicle and you're part of this big cog and into a big wheel and you're not sure where you fit in or what you're even doing for this company. But in my case, when we were planting 10-foot tall pine trees and moving big boulders around and putting mulch and making these beautiful homes, landscaping these beautiful homes, or whatever we were doing, at the end of the day, we would stand back and we would say, man, lean on your shovel and say, man, how cool is that? We did that. We built that. That will stand the test of time. Much like what you're just talking about now. The other thing, and I'd like you to comment on this a little bit. I feel that there's an enormous amount of control when you work for yourself. And what I mean by that is you get to control your day, your time, your schedule. You get to control your input level, your output level, the quality of that output. And also, the customer satisfaction, and also in many cases, the financial gain. So take me through a typical day as an electrician in your life, and tell me how you either agree with me or disagree with me about how important control is to live a fulfilled and balanced life.
Oh, absolutely. So obviously right now I'm an apprenticeship and I work for an independent electrical contractor. That's all we do is electricity. We are not a, joint company with HVAC or anything else. It's just electric. And we primarily focus in multi-unit residential or commercial facilities. So there isn't any home building. I don't do any residential. We arrive on site 7 a.m. every day, bright and early, doesn't change. Rain or shine, hot, cold, you just got to dress for it. So you plan, you just know your day, get there, unload tools. We all say good morning to each other. The people are my favorite part. I can tell you that right now, the people are my favorite part. And then the job is number two, but both of those things go hand in hand. So we arrive on site, we all say good morning to each other. We talk about what we're going to do for the day, and then we all go get started. And some days we're pulling wire, some days we're trimming out units, just installing racks and switches and putting up basic lights. And then some days I'm installing $100,000 light fixtures that's like, don't ruin anything or we're not going to get a new one and you probably won't have a job anymore. So it can be, I don't want to say stressful because I don't find those moments stressful. I find those moments as opportunity for growth. So I just kind of buckle down, focus, and say, okay, let's do this. This is absolutely a task that can be done and I'm the right person for it. So you just get the job done. But I spend so much of my days observing and learning and listening and asking my journeyman questions and just having so much fun doing it. So
do you feel like even though you work for somebody else, do you feel like you kind of work for yourself because it's your tools, it's your setup, do you feel like you have independence there?
I do, because they give me a task and then they let me decide how I want to execute it. There is no hand holding or, unless I ask for it. If I specifically ask for help, they will absolutely give me direction. But you're right, it's my own tools. I arrive in my own truck. I, have my own thing that I have going on for the day. They just say, okay, how are we doing on this? If we're working on a whole floor. I mean, one time I was in charge of doing all the doorbells in a 70 unit condominium building. So it's like, okay, we're on this floor in this unit and we're just rolling, and you're just running through, and that's what you do. You know exactly what you do when you got to get there. So it feels like you work for yourself a little bit, except for when the paycheck gets there. That's the only time you don't feel like you work for yourself, is when you see that little paycheck. But I'm still learning, and so I'm humbled to have the opportunity to even be paid to learn, because you don't get that opportunity in college. You pay to learn, and you don't earn.
I think that's one of the big differences. The other day I talked about there is a swing that you need to consider as a parent with whether or not to send your child to college. And again, and everybody, I've said this 100 times, maybe more than 100 times. I'm not anti-college. If you're going to school to learn to be a surgeon or something, so you can operate on my shoulder so I can get back out on the golf course, I want you to know everything there is to know about a knife before you come at me with it. So yeah, that's true. And if you're going to be an engineer or an architect or whatever, that's always true, or a teacher or whatever. So, but in this case, yeah, you're in a situation where you can get paid to learn while you're on the job instead of paying someone to learn to get a job. Yes. And in some cases, we did this thing the other day where if you had a $50,000 all-in tuition with books, school, travel, food, everything, that's $200,000 over 4 years. Sure. You could make $40,000 or $50,000 right out of the gate in a lot of these jobs. There's a $400,000 swing between the negative and the positive side of your asset base. So you at least need to think about that. Now, what does the future hold for you? I was talking to a pipe fitter the other day, and he said, he made decent money when he was doing his apprenticeship like you're doing, but then he made crazy good money when he got out of that apprenticeship, which is very close for you. So what's your opportunity there?
So I'm just beginning my 3rd year of apprenticeship, and I wouldn't say I'm comfortable by any means, but I feel like I am headed in the right direction for what I would like to accomplish as an electrician, which is to get my journeyman card. And then beyond that, if I'm still enjoying it as much as I am now, the possibility of becoming a master electrician is absolutely there. I'm up for the challenge with the education that it takes and owning a business, to practice that license, and we'll just see where it takes me. I don't ever like to discount things that can make you change your mind because it brings you happiness, or because you find out that, maybe it didn't make you as happy as you thought it would. But I know that regardless of what the future does hold, being an electrician is and will always be a huge stepping stone into some of the best moments of my entire life.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no doubt for those of you out there listening. So for every 6 electricians for every 10 electricians that retire today, only between 5 and 6 are coming online. And so that's creating a serious supply and demand problem, as it is in all types of construction jobs. And we all know one thing: where supply is low and demand is high, that's where the money goes. So you're in your learning phase, but you're not unlike anyone who would go to college. So you're actually getting paid to go to college for 4 years instead of paying. But once you get out, the money will be there for you. So
and skill, because even if you don't decide to pursue it as a career, that's knowledge that nobody can strip away from you. You're still going to be able to fix things in your home. You're still going to be able to do stuff on your own that you didn't know how to do before you got that education. It's still going to be useful to you no matter what.
And every time you go to hire an electrician that you don't need to do that now because you can do it yourself, how much money are you saving there, right?
It adds so much. I mean, everything I do at my own house, I just add to my salary, like, because I don't have to pay anybody to do it for me. So yeah, my paycheck might only be, $600 or $700 a week right now, but the skills that I've learned that I don't have to pay someone else to do for me add an additional 3, 4, 5, maybe even $600 a week to that. Because when you own a house and you've got kids and pets and the whole life and you're doing it all by yourself, that's a very large thing to take on.
Well, and again, ask any college student right now today if they would like getting paid $700 a week to go to college. And
Yeah.
they would probably say, well, heck yeah, I would. That would be
Yeah.
really great. Think of all
And
the beer money I could have if I.
think of all the beer money you'd save. Ken, I had a really rare and cool opportunity to speak at the technical college that I graduated from on their senior signing day to the high school students. And that was one of the main points of my speech to those kids, was that even if you think you may want to pursue a higher education and go to university, please, please, please take 1 year out of your life and learn a trade, because learning that trade could not only finance and pay for in cash your entire extended education, but you might just actually find out that you like that skill better than the one you were going to go try and learn. And then you're just making money right out of the gate.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And there you go. So I told those kids, I said, think really, truly hard about what makes you happy and you have passion for, and go chase that, because that's what inspires people. And people want to be inspired. They want to be around people who love what they do. And that's when your business is going to boom.
Love the message. So glad you're out there championing it along with me to get people to understand that this is happening. So let me ask you this: if you read in the book, and we'll get to that in a second, about how I like to have people draw out their future.
Yes.
It's almost like when you go to buy a car, a lot of times they'll give you a brochure, and when you take that brochure home, you don't open the brochure and see pieces and parts and transmission gearing and carburetors and all that kind of injection systems. No, you see a picture of that pickup truck maybe on a farm, with the family throwing hay bales in the back of it, or maybe they're sitting in the back of the truck watching a movie at the drive-in, or they're doing something cool. There's a memory around the brochure of the
Yep.
truck, okay, and what it can do for you. So do you have a life brochure? Do you see what you want your future to look like at all?
I have been doing vision boards almost my entire life. It started high school. We would sit, it was a group of us girls. We would just sit and make poster boards of all of our favorite things. We would cut out magazine pictures, and sometimes it would be for our weddings, or sometimes it would be for our dream life that we wanted to have someday. But as a kid, we were always doing those things, cutting out those magazine pictures and making those posters. And while I don't do like actual vision boards now as an adult, I still have regular goal setting sessions with myself where I sit down and I talk about my immediate goals that I have for, like, right now, like in the next couple of weeks coming up. Okay, these are things I've got to get done. I want to check this off. And then I move on to the next 6 months. Okay, what do I need to what do I want to accomplish in the next 6 months? What do I always give myself something to look forward to. Like, I try to plan a vacation or a getaway for me and the kids so that we've got something that we're happy about and looking forward to. I try to look up to somebody. I always want to have somebody that I'm following so that I am learning and growing, with those people. But I do the goal setting because it keeps me accountable for the path that I want to take. And I know you talk about paths a lot in your book. but it's that accountability that you can get lost. It's easy to get distracted. And unless you hone yourself in and you have sometimes a physical object that you can refer back to over and over again to say, okay, no, this is what I told myself I wanted to do, and I'm straying, so now I got to get back to it. But that those regular sessions help to keep things going in the direction that you really want them to go in.
It's so fantastic that you're saying this. I wonder, where did you get the idea to do your first one with your girlfriends when you were younger? Where did that come from?
It honestly, I can't remember. I want to say maybe we saw it in a movie.
Okay.
Another, I feel like maybe it was a Disney movie or just another movie or something that the girls and I were watching, but it was just us neighborhood girls, and we would sit and cut out. It started with milk ads. We would put milk, the got milk mustache ads all over our walls, and I would have posters of musicians and your idols and celebrities and people you wanted to be like. And then it was, oh, I want to live in a house like that someday, and those types of things. And while my dreams and my goals have maybe changed over the years, the act of goal setting and future planning has never not been a part of my life. I have always been a goal setter, and typically I smash those goals. Couple times it's been like, oh, okay, well, this one didn't feel as good as I thought it was going to feel, so maybe it wasn't the right goal to set. But still, knowing that I accomplished it when I set my mind out to accomplish it, okay, I didn't give up. That was good enough for me. I did it.
And when we talk about setting goals, and I love the fact that you use the word smash, because I use the word crush in the book quite a bit, about becoming a goal crushing person. Mm-hmm. When you look forward to something, and it's interesting that you use those words, because when someone says they look forward to something, well, the word choice means that you're staring out into the future, right? You're looking forward somewhere. Really, what that means is you're anticipating what's going to happen, right? Yes. And when you anticipate something, that's another word that, like, look forward. You can't really draw that. You can't draw the word anticipate. You can write it, but you can't really draw what it is, right? So when you anticipate something, you're really seeing a bunch of visions and pictures in your mind about something that's going to happen in the future. Well, now that you can draw. I mean, that's something that you can put on paper, right? That's a specific thing. So the act of anticipating is something that is just so absolutely important. When you get out of this apprentice scenario, mm-hmm. and you get into the journeyman side, you're going to be doing well. Obviously, you're going to be making a lot of money. What are some of the things you want to reward yourself with going forward?
Well, and to be honest with you, I have already been able to reward myself with some pretty nice things, because during my period of, I guess you could call it struggle, if you will, I call it simplifying, because I really learned to live simply and humbly without needing a ton of material things.
Sure.
So my kids and I have lived on a small budget for a long time. So being that I started to make a little bit more money than I was making for a while, I was just recently able to purchase my daughter first car before she even turned 16.
Wow.
So that for me was a huge, huge accomplishment, because there were times, I mean, within the last couple of years that I would sit awake at night and worry about those things, knowing that they were coming up in my life. I mean, my daughter's 15 years old. I'm like, she's almost going to be driving, and then there's going to be a car and insurance. And I'm just sitting here letting this all snowball in my mind, going, how can I afford all this by myself? And I was literally standing on a ladder, painting one of my best friend's houses, the inside of her house. She hired me to paint her house for her, standing on a ladder. And I go, I think I'm going to go back to school. And she says, for what? I said, electricity. And she says, that is a great idea.
Wow.
And that was all I needed to hear from my friend in that moment, because she had me change her dimmer switch in her dining room. And she was like, well, the dimmer switch works, so I think you could do it. And her little bit of belief in me in that moment set the seed to start growing. And within a month, I had visited the college and showed my interest. I did the tour. They make you shadow the program for a day. And I went in, talked to the instructor, talked to some of the students, and found out when I had to come back to do the registration process. And I made that a priority. I put it on the calendar. It was a can't miss it, not going to miss it. Went there, got my spot. I was so happy. It was me and 3 other people that all started in the program. We only 4 spots is all they had. And probably 30 or more people at least came out for that program. And I was one of 4 people to get that spot. So, it's like little goal after little goal. And then it was just one chapter through the book, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next lab, and the next lab. And pretty soon these guys in my class are looking at me like, who is this mom that just is coming in here, like running like she knows what she's doing? And we all had so much fun getting to know each other through school and labs. Now some of us are coworkers together, which makes it even more fun because we're going through apprenticeship together. And the journey to getting your journeyman card is what shapes you as a blue collar worker and an electrician or whatever field you choose. It's not just the task itself, it's who you meet and who you work for and who you get to work with and the jobs you build and the memories you make and the fun you have on the job site. That's what shapes you. That's what builds you.
Well, I tell you, I hope everybody heard that, because that is exactly the essence of what we do and why we do the things that we do. So you've got you now have this Instagram page and thousands of viewers. What made that happen, and why did you do that? I mean, first off, it's that underscore electrician underscore chick.
Correct.
And, for anyone out there that wants to go check it out, I love this because I've seen people do this with construction, like big John Deere tractors. I've seen people do this with drones. I've seen people do this with all kinds of things. You chose to do it in your field, which is really cool. And you have fun with it. There's color, there's music, there's fun, there's humor.
Yes.
I love the HR comment. Who's the gal? Is she looking for HR? And I mean, I love what you do. Why did you start that page?
So when I started, my very first day was July 7th of 2022. And I was so nervous that day. I showed up on site. This building was huge. There was so many trades. There was 20 other electricians on this site. And I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? What have I gotten myself into? I don't know if I can do this, but I said, I'm going to try. So I picked up my tool bag and we walked upstairs onto the 5th floor. And my very first task was a mirror box, setting a just basic receptacle box for a smart mirror that was going to go in. And I was freaking terrified. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I'm doing. But I did. I really did know what I was doing. It just took getting started to say, all right, here I am. I'm going to do this. I'm going to apply what I learned in school. I would ask questions. The first couple of days were really rough, but then things started getting easier. And then somebody would teach me something else. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, I can do this. And then things started coming out cleaner and everything looked nice. And it wasn't until I learned how to do the 3-way switches and a 3-gang switch box. Once I started really getting my wiring, my box makeup down, I got taught by a 3rd-year apprentice. His work is super clean. I still look up to him to this day. And he taught me, and ever since that day, all the guys on the team were like, hey, how'd you learn how to do that? And I'm like, what? Learn how to do what? It looks just like Buzz. And they're like, no, it looks really nice. And I'm like, wow, thanks guys. You know, they just complimented my work. A few weeks later, one of my coworkers was like, hey, you ever thought about doing a social media? And I was like, no, I'm a mom. I don't do social media. That's for young kids, right? So then they said no. They said lots of people do social media. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, maybe I'll think about it, but I didn't really give it a whole lot of thought. And then I had one coworker who was just really encouraging. He was like, no, he's like, I really think that like you would go far with this. He's like, I really do. He's like, I'll bring in my tripod one day if you want to set up a camera and, you know, make a nice video or something. I was like, you know, let's ask if we can do that. So we cleared it with our supervisor, like, hey, is it okay if we set up a camera? Like, didn't want to get in trouble for doing anything that I wasn't supposed to do on site. So he said, no, that's fine. And took the video, went about my day, and then got the footage. And I was like, okay, all right, we'll post it. And then I just kind of kept posting and, you know, posting and going about my time. And all of a sudden one day, it was like my phone just wouldn't stop buzzing. And I'm like, what is going on? And one of my wiring videos had been shared on an electrician platform on Instagram. And all of a sudden the likes and the followers just started going crazy. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like, I wasn't used to any of the attention. Like I mean, I started out with like 400 people on my TikTok and a couple hundred people on my Instagram. And now I have over 9,000 followers on TikTok and close to 7,000 on Instagram. So 16,000 people in all.
Right.
That's a lot of people.
Now, the reason I asked that question is because if you ask people, and this is what I love about what you've done, and you're not the only one to do this, as I said, which I think is really cool. So you ask a young person what they want to be today. Oh, I want to be an influencer, or I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. So what I find cool about what you've done is you've taken a technology that you could say is at least 50% detrimental to society, negative to society, right? Because you
Yes.
get to see these people for a few minutes in their finest moments, and you know that that isn't just reality, right?
Yep.
And you get to see some negative things and comparative things and boys and girls things, and it can be really, really frustrating and really negative.
Yep.
But then there's the other side of it that is informative, and it's sharing, and it's hopeful, and it's inspirational. And that's the side that you live in,
Yes.
which I think is really, really cool. So I look at that and I think you've kind of accomplished what most young people say they would want to do. You just found a lane in which to do it.
Yeah.
So you took your occupation and you're doing well with that, and you're going to do even better with it. But then you've also satisfied this social influencer, not that you wanted that, but some people do.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
satisfied both sides of that thing. And now I think what's going to happen next is the monetizing part.
Yes.
Not that you're even looking for it, but people are going to start sending you. I think they're already doing this. They're
They
sending
are. Yeah.
you
Yes.
shoes, and they're sending you gloves and
Yep.
tools and
Yep.
all these things. And what's really cool is I've seen some people who have grown some serious businesses
Yes.
on the monetizing side without even really intending to do it, but their videos are so good, they've garnered so many views that they get paid now to do this.
Yes.
And I just talk a little bit about that. Whether that's your purpose or not doesn't matter. Just talk about the excitement of that and how cool that is.
So it is so cool. And I kind of figured this out right at the time as my social media was starting to, you know, really take off. And I mean, I don't even really consider it to be that big yet, because there's some girls out there that are much younger than me in the field that I work in that I look up to simply because they're just out there being badasses. But
Yep.
I'm like 13 years older than they are.
Yeah.
So I'm not out here trying to be just like them. I'm just a mom with a couple of kids trying to give them a better life and myself a better life. You know, but social media is incredible. It connects people all over the world. that you maybe wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to connect with. So in November of 2022, I got to go to my son's school for what's called the Great American Teach-In. And they allow parents to come to the school and teach kids about what they do for a living. And, you know, it's like career day, but you get to go in and actually talk to the kids. So I went in with all my tools and I told the kids what I do for a living, and the looks on the faces of the little girls in that room. Even when I was walking in the door, some of the other moms that were there, you know, that are nurses and, you know, doctors, and those professions are incredible too. It's just different from what I do. But they saw me walk in with all my tools and they're like, who the heck is this?
Right. Sure.
But the little girls were like, wow, I could do that when I grow up. It just set off a whole light bulb of new inspiration for these little kids. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm a role model.
Yeah, you are.
For them. And it just set me on this path of, I mean, not that I had a problem before, but I got sober completely. I don't drink anymore because I feel like I have a responsibility to some of these younger generations to set a good example for a blue collar, beautiful life. So I don't want these kids to see me opening up a cooler every single day after work, or, you know, drinking like that's the way you solve your problems, because it's not. That's not what this life does for you. It can create such a beautiful environment for you to live in. I don't even want to do that anymore. That's how much I love my life.
I'm looking at you right now and I'm thinking you're proud of yourself, aren't you?
I am. I'm very proud of myself because the trials and tribulations that everybody go through in life, we all have them. They're just all different. But when you beat those demons and those demons don't win, that's something to be proud of. So I've learned to accept and allow myself to be proud of myself. And I also teach others around me to do the same thing. At work, I am constantly telling people that they should be proud of themselves. And they're like, you talk to me like I'm your child. And I'm like, but I'm a mom, so I'm allowed to do that. But people, I feel like we've been so programmed to not feel pride when we've earned it. If you've gone through the work and you've really humbled yourself to do the hard things that need to be done, and you come out prosperous on the other side, healthy, happy, ability to give back, that's something to be proud of.
You know, it's funny that you just said that word, because I think between all my socials now, I'm approaching probably 100,000 followers with email lists and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. Those ones are just, those are the newer ones, because I'm an older guy and I don't necessarily do social media. I have somebody else help me do it, and it's starting to grow like crazy. But the one word that I hear more than anything when I put out what was it like having a blue collar career, or talk about, you know, your career and what it was like, and the things that you went through and the things that you experienced, and, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The one word that I get more than anything, and the one thing that lights up my boards more than anything, is when people talk about the pride that they feel in the work that they do and how proud they are of the things that they've accomplished. So thank you so much for saying that. We have just a few minutes left here. I'm talking with Andrea O'Connell, that electrician chick, and I'm so glad to have you on the show today. So you read my book, Blue Collar Cash, which again, it's a conversation about what we're talking about right now, which is, don't be fooled by the establishment. There's many ways to make an awesome living, and a college degree is only one of them. So you were kind enough to tell me that you reviewed it and said, you know, that a lot of things resonated with you. You thought the book was awesome. So can you just tell me one or two things quick that resonated with you as far as what the book had to offer?
Yes, absolutely. So your landscaper friend, Minnesota, That story resonated so heavily with me because I absolutely love the way that he planned out the type of life he wanted to live, and he executed that plan brilliantly by giving himself simplicity and work ethic and a goal, and he just smashed it, and he lived the best life for himself. His life isn't going to be great for everyone. It's not across the board. It's find what makes you happy, set that path, set that goal, make those actions, take those steps, and go smash it and live your dream life. And you can make some money along the way, because working with your hands and providing for people around you and fixing things and being helpful, they bring so much joy, so much pride, but the paycheck comes with it because not everybody can do those things. So it just, your book on so many levels resonated with my soul. I mean, down to just finding what your definition of peace, comfort, and freedom really are. Or I suppose it's comfort, peace, and freedom is how you say it. But it just, being a kind and happy and caring, courageous person, putting myself out there for others to see that it's possible for them to do too. I mean, it's not like somebody said, oh, okay, well, she's the only person who can do this, so let's have her do the social media and show everybody that she can do it. No, I'm just a regular woman who decided that I wanted a better life for me and my kids. And I realized that nobody was going to come and give that to us. I had to earn it. I had to work for it. So I figured out what I could do. I set the path. I made the plans, and I'm doing it.
Good for you. I love it. Love everything that you just said. And thank you so much for even taking the time to read the book. And I'm glad that that it did resonate with you, especially with the things that
It was.
And again, thank you so much for that. So if you read it, then you read the words comfort, peace, and freedom, which you just so aptly named.
Yeah.
For me. Thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
I always talk about this. So I'm going to ask you first, where can people find you? Because, I just mentioned your Instagram. I hope
Yes.
people follow you, because it's really cool to see what a day in the life of you is, and how you make it fun, and you make it colorful and interesting and musical. I love your Instagram. So where can people find you and then eventually follow you?
So people can find me on TikTok and Instagram as that_electrician_chick. And you're going to find blue collar humor. You'll find tips. You'll find my daily activities. Everything I do is exactly what I did for the day. So I don't have lots of content stored up that I just pull from. What you see is what you get. That's pretty much what I worked on. So it's just allowing people to be a part of my daily experience in the trades. And I would love for you to join me.
Beautiful. I encourage everyone to do it. That_electrician_chick. Please follow Andrea O'Connell. Finally, real quick, lightning round. Okay. I'm going to ask you three things. Where are you the most comfortable?
In my home.
In your house. Tell us about that just a little bit. Tell us about that.
So we have all of our animals. We have chickens, we have cats, we have a dog, we have fish, we have turtles. I have my 2 kids, and we have lots of plants, and we have things that we love to do. We have activities. My son plays basketball. My daughter and I golf. I mean, I love coming home every day because I've created an environment that I love to be in.
Beautiful. And you get free eggs. I saw that on your
Yes, I haven't bought eggs in years.
at $12 a dozen, you should be listening to Andrea.
Right?
So where are you the most peaceful? And you can't use your home because we got to go with something different. Where do you find yourself most at peace?
Peaceful is on my job sites. When I am wiring and when I am installing things, devices, doesn't matter. I find so much peace in working with my hands and being able to provide something for our client, for whoever we're building for. That's where I find my peace, is creating and building for other people and showing the world my craft.
Amen to that. Absolutely. And finally, where do you find yourself feeling the most freedom?
Freedom is when my kids and I have the availability and the time to go spend time together, because I don't know if you can see it in the sign above my head,
but together is my favorite place to be.
in my kitchen, it says together is my favorite place to be. And so all the time when I'm not at work, you can find me with my family because my family is the reason I'm literally doing this all. I would not have had the drive to do any of this if it wasn't for those two sweet little faces staring at me going, you know, we love you, mom. You know, it's just every single day they're what keeps me going, and they're so proud of me, and that's all I need. That's all I need.
I can see the emotion coming up in you when you talk about your kids and how they're proud of you. I can
Yeah, like you are with Nicole.
yeah, exactly. Exactly right. I can tell you that you don't need to hear this from me, but I'm proud of you. I'm proud of everything that you're doing. I'm
Thank
sure
you, Ken.
you are setting an amazing example for your own kids as well as everyone out there that's now watching you. You
Thank you.
you're one of those people now that it has the honor of sharing your gifts with the world, and
Yes.
that's one of the things that's incumbent upon all of us to do. So go out there and do your thing, and we'll be watching. Okay,
Thank you,
Andrea
Ken.
Donald, that electrician chick. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Comfort,
It
Peace,
was
and Freedom podcast.
so nice to be here with you, Ken. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it.